The Godfather trilogy is undoubtedly one of the greatest in cinema history. Almost every aspect is perfect and intrigues us even today. The brilliance of Mario Puzo and Francis Ford Coppola has given us some of the most iconic and powerful quotes we have ever heard. Delivered by some of the most legendary actors of all time, they have become infused in pop culture forever. And to pay homage to these iconic works, we will give you our ranking of the top 10 most iconic quotes of all time, and unraveling what exactly they mean and lessons they hold. But first, comment which one you think will be in the number 1 spot, and let's see if you can guess it correctly.
It's not personal, Sonny. It's strictly business.
This was the first sign that Michael has taken his first step into the world of the Mafia. It is very similar to what we talked about, the fact that you should never hate your enemies as it hinders your ability to strategize and win. It's also Michael trying to justify to Tom Hagen that he is not seeking revenge out of his personal need for vengeance, but as a strategic move to destroy their enemies. Although we do later find out Michael doesn't really believe this, but we'll talk about that in a future video.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
Truly one of the most iconic lines in cinema history. It's not that it is very deep or has an important life lesson, but for a few different reasons. It gave us a better understanding of how truly ruthless these people are. Although we meet Clemenza at a wedding having a great time, we are now hit with the reality that he is a ruthless criminal, where he is unfazed by what just happened and more concerned about the cannolis his wife asked for. But what's really fascinating about it, and one of the main reasons we included it in this video, is the fact that Richard Castellano had improvised the line on the spot.
I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart. You broke my heart.
After noticing several red flags and growing more and more suspicious of him, Michael's worst fear had become a reality. It was undeniable. Michael's very own older brother had betrayed him, almost costing his own life, and that of his wife and children. This betrayal really crushed Michael, and would haunt him for years to come. He had never guessed or expected that it would be his very own blood that would betray him. Also, it made him question his own abilities to be Don and reignited the doubts he had of being able to be half the Don his father was. As this was all happening right under his watch, and he was taken for a fool. So now he was put into the worst position he could have imagined. What was he going to do? As a mafia boss, the answer was clear, but as a Corleone, this was an impossible dilemma. But to make things worse, Fredo destroyed any possibility of reconciliation when he ran away from Michael. But if Fredo had just confessed, Michael would have most likely forgiven him. This betrayal meant that Michael had two options, both extremely risky and each carry a lot of consequences.
You spend time with your family?
Sure I do.
Good. Because a man who doesn't spend time with his family can never be a real man.
This is one of the Godfather's primary principles, and encapsulates Vito's mentality and values. The difference between Michael and Vito is that it seems as though Michael tried to constantly convince himself that he was doing all this for the family, but if we look a little bit deeper, he was more interested in changing the perception the world had of him. But in Vito's case, there is no shadow of a doubt he put the family first. It also highlights the necessity of having a circle of people who genuinely are on your side and support you no matter what.
Never hate your enemies. It affects your judgment.
The Godfather 3 has a multitude of problems that I'm sure you are aware of, but there are some gems in it, and this is probably on top of that list. It basically means don't take things too personal before making a move or taking a particular course of action. A common misconception is that he means that you should love your enemies or not take them seriously. On the contrary, the idea is to leave emotions out of it and think rationally and logically while you make your decisions. Do this, you will emerge victorious and will be able to enjoy the sweetness of victory. But if you act based on only emotion, well, you are on a certain path to failure. We see Michael masterfully apply this principle after taking over the family. Michael is forced to deal with the same people who had murdered his brother and his wife, the same people who tried to kill his father and had forced him into exile for years. Not only did he have to deal with these people, but he had to do everything possible not to provoke or give them a reason to go back to war. On top of all that, he was being pressured by people within the family to give them the go-ahead and respond. But Michael maintained his position and followed this principle perfectly. Although there was nothing more Michael wanted to do than to face his enemies and take them on head-on, even if he had to do it himself. But he knew that simply would not work yet, he needed time. It did take a great deal of discipline to be able to pull this off, and that aspect of it is something we can all benefit from learning.
I spend my life trying not to be careless. Women and children can be careless, but not men.
One of the key factors that allowed Vito to reach such a level of wealth, success and power was his ability to never be careless. When he did something, he always ensured it was done properly, as the smallest of mistakes can trigger the downfall of even the most powerful individuals and even empires. And it's absolutely true, although it seems obvious and cliché, but we all are guilty of this. Vito truly did live up to his words, at least for the most part. We watched him make sure he was calculating every move and analyzing the intentions of people before even meeting them. And what's interesting, the thing that almost led him to ruin was the one instant he was somewhat careless.
He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
Meaning you should always be paying constant attention to your enemies, being vigilant in ensuring you can anticipate what they are thinking or planning. You should understand and know your enemies the same or even more than your friends. But also in the sense of learning how to use your enemies. When Michael goes to Frankie to discuss the attack at his compound, he unveils that he had discovered who was behind it. However, there were still so many hidden details, so he did not yet have the complete picture.
It was Hyman Roth that tried to have me killed.
And so when he relays this information to Pentangeli, Frankie immediately wanted to launch a full-scale attack against Roth and his associates, but Michael knew that would be a huge mistake. He understood his father's teachings and knew what the smarter move to make was. So he needed to remain close to Roth, ensuring he does not suspect that Michael is onto him, and understood what he was planning. Michael needed to wait until he had the full picture, as at that point Michael did not know who the traitor in his organization really was. Therefore, continued to allow Roth to play the role of the wise and humble mentor and father figure. This is one of Vito's most powerful lines in the novel. What Vito is basically saying is that in his world, the world of the mafia and crime, vengeance is more satisfying when enacted after some time after the harm that instigated it. This could stem from his experience in enacting his own revenge on those who had wronged him. The perfect example would be Don Ciccio. The old Sicilian Don had caused so much trauma and suffering for Vito, practically killing off his entire family. And so after Vito had built himself up from nothing, he went back to Sicily to enact his revenge. And the mere sight of this once powerful man, someone who ruled with an iron fist, feared by everyone he encounters, and does as he please, now just a pathetic old and weak man, barely able to comprehend what is going on, which gave Vito an even greater satisfaction in avenging his family, and humiliating this once powerful Don. It made enacting his revenge even more satisfying even though all these years had passed by. And Michael had also understood this and followed his father, and applies it on several occasions. Firstly, when he takes out the entire commission and his traitor brother-in-law, after having to swallow his pride and tame his anger for a couple of years until he found the right moment to strike. We see this again following the numerous attacks made on him by the treacherous Hyman Roth, where Michael waits and plays his cards just right so that he is able to come out victorious and crush him once and for all.
But don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again. Ever.
During Michael's intense meeting with Mo Green, Fredo, instead of siding with his brother, but more importantly the acting Don of the family, he obliviously was defending and siding with Mo Green against Michael. He was undermining Michael's authority and showing him a huge amount of disrespect, which would have grave consequences for everyone involved. And so, Michael gave this powerful warning to Fredo not to undermine him again. And in it is such a powerful lesson or even insight into leadership. Finally, at number 1, we've got perhaps the most iconic line in cinema history.
Too late, they start shooting in a week.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
This is what set Vito Corleone from all the rest of the powerful mafia bosses. He was a master at understanding people and human nature, combining it with his cunning and shrewdness. He slowly began to conquer the rough streets of New York. And as his power and experience grew, so did his access to new methods. For example, he controlled a massive part of the criminal underworld, possessing a battalion of experienced gangsters to use at his disposal. However, unlike the other dons, it was always his last resort. He usually used his business and negotiation skills to reason with people, trying to find a way to benefit both sides. And because of the reputation he had built, people often wanted to remain on his good side. As for those who challenged him, well, let's just say the Don can be very convincing when someone like Luca Brasi is standing behind him. But even without Luca Brasi, Vito had a set of principles he used to make an offer they can't refuse. And if you want to know how Don Vito does it, how you too can learn to make an offer they can't refuse, watch this video. In real life, thankfully, we don't need a Luca Brasi to do this, and so in that video you will find out exactly how you can apply it in your own life.
Be my friend, Godfather.
I'm smart!